I always heard that this book was about communism, but it is about way more than that. I really found it brilliant how Orwell uh, came up with the idea of comparing society to a farm because I have uh, animals. I don't live in a farm. Not it's not even a homestead, but I got enough property to have several chickens, dog, uh, cats. We got some ducks. Um, I don't have pigs. I don't have pigs. I don't have sheep. I don't have goat. But just from being around enough animals like that, just from having a bunch of chickens and roosters, uh, and being around a bunch of squirrels, because I got a bunch of trees back here, and just from watching those animals, you learn so much. Um, Animals can be very insightful. Sometimes you're observing animals and you're like, shit, is that how we really behave? Because we don't, we really don't see it because we think we are cream of the crop as a human race, but in reality, us human beings, we have a lot of primitive behaviorisms. We be acting like goddamn animals. We really do. And through animals, we get to see some of that because we identify nobility in animals. Nobility usually belongs to us. We usually think of animals as just being mindless for the most part. But no, we see the same nobility uh, in a lot of animals that we are able to display, and also at the same time as those animals perform nobility, they also perform uh, violence and instinctual behaviors, like a rooster sacrificing his own meals for his uh, hens to be able to feed themselves. And, you know, if you're able to identify the nobility in the animals, you surely can identify everything else, including sacrificial behaviors, selfish behaviors, violent behaviors. It's insane how much we can learn about us through them than we can learn about us through us, you know? And maybe that speaks maybe that speaks to how unaware we are. How unaware we are. We just go through this life doing and undoing and not being aware of anything. Right off the bat in this book, I identified myself with a donkey named Benjamin. It made me really laugh out loud, for reals, for reals. This is a donkey who, in the middle of uh, the uproar of the animals of wanting a revolution and wanting to free themselves from the humans. Uh, this Benjamin the donkey man, he don't get too excited by a lot of things, and for instance, he would say that God had given him a tail to keep the flies off, but that he would sooner have had no tail and no flies. Alone among the animals on the farm, he never laughed. If asked why, he would say that he saw nothing to laugh at. So I love uh, Benjamin the donkey because he's a cynical. at his at his core, he's a cynical. There's this other saying in the book where he's just reminding the animals that that a donkey lives a long time. A donkey lives a long time. Basically saying I've seen it all. I don't believe no damn bullshit, no damn BS promises. I've smelt them all. I've sniffed them all. It reminds me of a little exchange that I had with a coworker not too long ago. This guy, he was a workaholic, and not only was he a workaholic, but he was loyal. For a better lack of term, he was a loyal um, employee. He'd been with the same employer for like 20 years, and he wasn't the most happy employer most of the time. He begrudged and he complained and he talked shit about our boss. Uh, but nevertheless, at his core, he was loyal and hardworking, even if it came at the cost of his own personal life and his health, and it did. And we all saw him suffer, and we all knew how much he had given to our employer. And one time we were always talking about deep stuff, deep conversations. And one time he was saying something like that the only comfort he had of working so much was that at least when he died in heaven, when Jesus received, when that in heaven, Jesus was gonna see all the work that he had done down here, and that Jesus might of might be content with that. And I remember just hawking a loogie on the ground, being like, "Shit! If to meet Jesus, I gotta fucking work my ass down to the ground for our boss. Shit, I don't want to meet no damn Jesus." He was just solemnly disappointed in my comment. But anyways, that's just me being cynical, like Benjamin the Donkey. It is obvious that George Orwell was writing about communism. He was a guy from the first half of the 20th century, English fella, um, European, and I think a lot of the people, especially Europeans, were very concerned with uh, communism and fascism and all these political parties that promised so much glory uh, to the people, but at the end of the day, they were just parties who had dictatorial uh, natures and interests in heart, you know. And I think a lot of people saw what really was going on, but at the same time, a lot of people were caught in it. They were caught in those storms of political change. Back then, people used to be much poorer than they are today. You know, Nowadays you can be poor and not really feel it because there's so much accessible comfort and accessible stuff, like accessible medicine, accessible uh, food, assistance. Uh, Not so much back then. Not so much back then. A lot of people literally worked themselves to death. Um, so when somebody came along and made a bunch of fancy speeches about power to the people and overthrowing a ruthless government, hey, they were all in. And I think that Orwell was kind of obsessed with the reason of why people fell for that. Like, why did people fall for that? And it never changes. I mean, nowadays people are falling for that type of stuff today, and I mean, we're modern people with a capability of being able to learn very easily from the past, yet we still fall for the same tricks. And I think, at least on behalf of communism, I can't speak too much on fascism, but quick disclaimer: I'm not a huge historian, especially when it comes to communism. I know just enough. You know, the things that you read at school and the things that you see in documentaries and in movies. But with that said, I think the people who started these movements, maybe they had real intents on changing things, and but eventually they got corrupted when they acquired the old power. Now they overthrow the government and they become the government. You know, the people that lead the ideas, they become tainted with the power. And that's something that's something that I love about this novel. It's not just about communism. It's very much about human nature, very much. And I read 1984, and look, the guy was obsessed with politics, and for a good reason. But uh, as where 1984 is a little bit more dense, he goes into the anatomy of fascism mainly, or a dictator government. In this book, he's a little bit more. He's less lenient on his dissection, and he focuses more on the the overall panorama of not just the nature of politics, but the nature of beings. In this case, animals. But obviously, animals were used as a symbol for humans. From the beginning, he makes the pigs to be the smarter of the animals, which I think it's true. I mean, all his observations he didn't make up; they're true. If you observe farm animals, you know you also get to learn this. But right off the bat, the pigs are the intellectuals. They're the one who lead with the ideas and the speeches and motivate and incentivize and eventually organize the rest of the animals. Uh, but also, eventually, once they have uh, the power, they start to change their promises and the rules that they laid down in favor of them. The horses are depicted as the working class, you know, very strong, will work till they die, and you know, a very noble class, really, and they will sacrifice everything to the pigs and the higher ideals that they came up with because they believe in them. But the pigs will just eventually they just become self-consumed with selfishness. And then you got the sheep, and the sheep are basically dumb animals, and they are led wherever the pigs lead them to, and they'll be taught a chant or a song, and once they learn it, they'll repeat it endlessly. They'll repeat the chant or the slogan or the song, and the pigs will use that as an advantage because the sheeps become so fanatic of whatever they're taught that they will just blur that shit out wherever they are to interrupt people. And since there's more sheep in the farm than any of the other animals, when they blur a chant, like, um, for example, they're taught by the pigs to chant for, since they're so dumb and they really can't grasp entirely the ideas that the pigs are trying to lay down. They're basically just given a simple explanation of what the cause of liberation from the humans mean, and and it goes it goes four legs good, four legs good, two legs bad, and that's all they need to know. That's all they need to know. And they blur that shit fanatically. Fanatically. And since there's so many of them, they basically shut down any other arguments coming from any of the other animals. Because not only do they become fanatics of the chants that they're being taught, but they also become fans of the pigs. Everyone else is following the pigs, and they believe in the ideals that pigs came up with. You know, they want to become free from humans and whatnot, but the sheep take it up a few notches higher. And since nobody has the capacity to out scream a multitude of sheep, all you can do is just let them keep chanting and shouting and yelling and until they quiet down. And as it is in real life, I mean, when that happens, when the masses are louder than when a popular idea is so popular and so loud, I mean, you really can't turn it off that easily because it's widespread. It's widespread, and in this life, it's easier to be dumb than it is to be intelligent. So in essence, there's more dumb people than intelligent people. And arguments, man, they take a lot of energy. You know, they take a lot of energy, and you can't just argue away your brains with the sheep. So I wrote something down that I want to use to wrap up the video with, and it goes: conclusion. Everyone wants to become like their oppressor, and if they can, they will. The cycle of inequality never ends. We all criticize the powerful and the rich, but the reality is that if we could be powerful and rich, we would. And to think that we can override the worst aspects of a rich and powerful is a fallacy, I believe. Because at the end of the day, they, just like us, believe it or not, are also human, with a human brain, a human heart, and a human soul, if you believe in that. And we are all poor and rich, dumb and intellectual, strong and weak, susceptible to the taint of selfish needs. We're all in this world on the same journey, except that some of us are more advanced in that journey than others, or some of us are better equipped in the journey. But at the end of the day, the journey has the same goal, the same battles. And in my personal belief, that battle is good versus evil. I think that battle is at the core of our existence. You strip everything down in this world, everything down to the bare minimum, and that's all that remains that really matters. Everything else goes to the wind, to the ground. Nothing lasts in this life, and it really doesn't matter if you think about it. All that we fight and strive for really doesn't matter. But good and evil are forces so powerful that they echo through the centuries and the millennia. They have the force to change the course of history and to mold humanity. And whether you are aware or not, we are all in that ultimate battle.